to our webinar today. We are going to be diving into a topic that I feel super passionate about. And it's really about your audience, how you align to them, and how you can use that to improve all of your marketing and sales. And I really do believe that what we're talking about today is truly a catalyst for growth. So let's dive in and just learn a little bit more about this topic that I absolutely love. So, if you don't know who I am, I'm Andy Helko. I started an agency called Insivia 25 years ago, the ripe age of 22. And over those 25 years, I've worked with a couple of hundred companies. I recently wrote two books that I have put out around buyer centric operating and the AI influence buyer. Check them out if you're interested. But in that time, I've worked with so many different companies on how they can scale their marketing and sales. What all of this revolves around are two topics that I'm really passionate about. The first one is one that has built for me over the years, year after year, the idea of human psychology. That I really love exploring how people think and how different things influence their behavior. I always found it really interesting the story of how flowers at the beginning of a grocery store are put there to help people get the sense of things being fresh. And so they walk in and they see these fresh new flowers, and it changes their psychology before they even step to see any product. And that's really such an interesting topic of how human psychology across ads, web, marketing, sales, whatever it might be, how that really is such a big piece to influencing our audience. The other topic that I've become really, really interested in is artificial intelligence. And so this change, I've really dove into what AI can do and how it can change our business. I think there's so many interesting opportunities with artificial intelligence for how we can scale our businesses, both internally in how we operate, but also in how we drive growth through marketing and sales. And for me right now, these two topics are really coming to a head of how can we use human psychology and then infuse artificial intelligence to really improve everything that we do. And that's the foundation of what today's topic is really about. So, in this presentation, I really want you to walk away with a new perspective on what you should be focused on in marketing and sales, and how you can take that focus to change all of the tactics and all of the assets that you're putting out there to improve how you influence buyers and how you can actually get to new customers. And so I hope that you have an open mind today to change from what you used to be and what you focused on to a new approach that I really think can make a huge impact. So, in doing my business for 25 years, there is one thing that has just been built into me is the understanding that over 25 years, channels have changed. When I started, YouTube wasn't very popular. Facebook was invite only to certain groups of people. We didn't have search engines in the same way that we do today. And so, over the years that I've had my marketing business, all of that has changed. But there is one thing that has not changed: the fact that we are trying to influence a target audience. We're trying to speak to them. We're trying to get their attention. We're trying to move them forward in a process to reduce their sense of risk, to speak to their pains. No matter what channel pops up, now or in the future, that will be a constant to marketing, is that you are here to take a prospect into a customer, and you're doing that as a human, and their psychology that it requires to drive them through that process. And so, no matter the channel, it really is about the people underneath it. So, one of the things that I typically see is most people are obsessed with certain metrics within their business when they're trying to do different tactics. So they're doing ads and email and landing pages, they're creating content and sales decks, they're building proposals and sending them out. And then they obsess about the ideas of what are our open rates and our impressions? What clicks do we have? What's our bounce rate on our website? And these are things that just, at the end of the day, they're easy to measure. They're simple metrics of what's happening, the activity, but they're not really helping you understand the true thing that's important, which is what resonates with our target audience. What we should be really thinking about and obsessing is what our buyers think and feel. And so I'm talking about pains. What is keeping them up at night? And tomorrow morning, they're going to go in the office and it's going to be rolling through their head so that when your ad comes through their feed, it aligns to that pain that they were thinking about all night. Or the risk that they have. They're concerned about what might trouble them in the future or what potential issues that they have, a governance issue in their business, compliance, what risks they have to face. And again, if you're popping up with messages that align to that, trends that they're interested in, goals that they want to achieve, influencers of the people in their office, their boss coming down and saying, we have to achieve these results. Do you understand all of these different pieces of that buyer psychology? Because that's actually what truly influences things like ads and emails. Because our ads, we only get results when we're speaking to people's pains or their goals. Emails, you're not going to get an open if you don't have a subject line that speaks to their psychology. Proposals, we have to mitigate the risks and understand how the people that are influencing them are looking at this as well within a buying committee. And so, really, for me, it's about we need to be obsessing about our target audience the most because that is what influences these things. And so this comes full circle because when we do obsess and we do care about what our buyers care about, their pains, their needs, that's actually what influences these open rates, these click throughs and conversions and bounce rates and our win rates. If we're aligning those ads, if we're creating a website that really speaks to their needs, if we're building all of these things into proposals, we are actually now influencing those metrics that we were obsessed about. But the thing is when we're just focused on those metrics, but not thinking back to the buyer and their pains and their needs, we're not able to correctly change what really matters to influence those numbers. And so it's fine to understand that that is the outcome. Those numbers are the symptom, but what really is the root cause is how much are you aligning to these target buyers? And so I really think that the most impactful change that you can make to your business is to start building and optimizing around your target buyer. It was a big part of my first book, The Buyer Centric Operating System, that if you put the buyer at the center of your business, whether it's developing your product, it's creating marketing, it's implementing sales, it's doing customer service or operations, all of that should really evolve and revolve around your target audience. And so I think one of the most impactful things that any company can do today, especially in a world of AI and speed and scale, is come back to the true basic foundation that we are dealing with humans and we are trying to influence people. Now, one of the mistakes that I see the most in organizations is you'll see personas be created. I'm someone that's done this for many years, 10, 15 years ago, create a persona at the beginning of a project where I'll come into a client and they'll have developed a persona. But the reality is that those tend to sit in some slide deck and they get looked at or built in the beginning and then they never get looked at again. The amount of times that I've done a website project where we start out with a persona and then, a month into the engagement, the client stops thinking from that perspective. And the only way to bring them back to thinking about the customer is to force it back in front of their face and say, we've got to really focus on what matters to them, not what matters to you. I've actually always said one of the biggest barriers to success is some sort of stakeholder on the other side coming in and thinking that their viewpoint is more important than their buyer's viewpoint. The other challenge with most of these personas is that they come from gut instinct and assumptions. Your salesperson is out there and they're thinking of their best and favorite customers when you ask them about what the pains and challenges of your target audience are. Their mind goes to the people they had the best relationship with. Or maybe a founder that had been in the industry 10 years ago, things have changed, their own understanding has changed, but they're doing it based off of their gut. And so, one of the biggest challenges with any persona, too, is that it's very biased. And it's hard to get a true view of what your target customer is when it's coming through the filter of the people in your organization. And so, one of the biggest challenges I look at is we aren't our buyers. And this is a tough one for people to get in their heads. Often I face this when I go into companies and we start talking about target audience. They instantly have this mindset of, I get it. And especially in organizations where people in the company have come from the target in the past. And the problem is that things have shifted. By the time they move to this new company and they're now selling to who they used to be, their priorities have changed. What they think is important has changed. Who influences them. And so, really, there is no way that we can face understanding our target audience without some bias. And that is really challenging. And going back to what we were talking about of how you align to pains, motivations, buying factors, we have to get that right to get our marketing and sales right. And so we really need to move away from our own bias and look at it from our customer's perspective. Now, this is where the whole concept of AI comes in. And what I find very interesting is that AI now gives us the ability to remove bias from the equation, to be able to look at things from another perspective on a regular basis. And so, what we really look at is how do we use AI to research and understand, to take data that we can find out in the world and put it in and create a true view of our customer that is organized, prioritized, and really looks through the lens of their psychology. And in the old days, a persona might have a title and that they were a Sagittarius. But now with AI, we can create true psychological profiles that really understand what is important to our target audience. And then we can make sure that we can go out there and we can test materials against that and say, as an AI, you are this person, you have this psychological profile. Now tell me what you think about this. And so AI has really unlocked an interesting thing. It's given us the ability to have a new perspective and see human psychology in an unbiased way. And this is where things get so powerful. And now, the one thing that influences our growth the most, we can actually look at in a whole new way. One of the things that we really want to do now, in my opinion, with AI is start to put a tangible, concrete metric to buyer alignment and how much we resonate. Again, in the past, this was really hard. We might go around to people in our company and say, on a scale from 1 to 100, how well do we align with customers when we send out proposals or when we do ads? And everybody in the company is going to give you a wildly different number. Most people are going to shift towards a high number because they're just guessing and they want to say, oh, we're a 90 when we're aligned to our buyers. But the reality is that we can now use AI, like I just talked about, to create a scoreable system that is very logical and says, okay, based on this web page, I can look at the colors, I can look at the words, I can look at the narrative, I can look at all of these things, and then I can look at my AI buyer psychology and I can say, this is actually a 40 in relation to our target buyer. And what that does is now that you can measure it, you can look at it and say, what do we need to change? I'm going to change it. I'm going to measure it again. And I'm going to say that we have now aligned to our buyer more than we were before. And so the important thing is that we now are able to take and make buyer alignment a number that we can measure, we can analyze as an organization, we can influence, and then we can remeasure to see how we're doing and continually optimize. And so we really need to ask not how did it perform, but how well did it align? Because if we know how well it aligns, it will perform better. So we really want to look at this across a wide range of different parts of our business. I typically start with brand because this is the foundation. If we really can create a brand, how we define our differentiation, our moat, our elevator pitch, our why as a company, the headlines that we're going to use. If we can make sure that those align to the fears, the goals, the motivations of our target audience, it really influences everything that we do in marketing and sales. When we go out and create a ad, we'll create messaging that comes back to that brand. When we create a landing page, we're building that off of the brand. All of these things that we create are really based in that foundational framework of messaging. And so what we have to do is start here at brand and measure how things like our positioning, our differentiation, our brand story, how well do they align to different people in our target audience? And if they're not aligned, what do we need to do to change that? And I really think this is one of the most important things that we can get right to align with our buyers. The next is really awareness. So one of the things we're trying to drive ad clicks, people through search, now answer engines. But what we really need to know is what is it that people are actually searching? A lot of times companies will do search research or search engine research to understand key phrases based on how many searches there are or what they just guess that people are searching. What we really want to do is take that buyer psychology and determine what is it that our target audience is really asking Google that relates to our business. And then ask what are the questions that they're putting into answer engines? What are the messages that when they see it in their feed, they would click on for an ad? And so really it's again coming back to that buyer psychology with all of these to think what are they really interested in? What are they facing in pains? And then how do we influence them in this process? Next, we have web. And I see this as a center point of how we convert folks. So no matter what channel, whether you're sending them from search into your site, an ad, the website is a key piece. And so we really want to understand how well do each of the pages and the journey that we're putting people through on the website, how much does that align to our target audience? And so we really look at needs, pains, their mindset. And by doing that, we can get a page to score and then improve it and align to our buyers so that we increase conversion, we increase trust and confidence, and really make true impact. And then finally, one of the things that I find most interesting is the sales side, is that we're delivering quotes and estimates and proposals. We're sending emails to potential prospects in the process, maybe sending other materials. And are we really stepping back and designing those in thinking about their buying factors, what things they're using to make their decision, what risks they have, and how you mitigate them. And then the influences that they face from other people in the organization, as well as the buying committees within it. And so the interesting thing that we have is with AI, we can actually look at that. We can say, here is a 5-person buying committee. Here are their psychological profiles. Look at this proposal and tell me who aligns to it the most and who doesn't. And what do we need to improve to make sure that the whole buying committee can really work together and understand why they should move forward with us. And again, it's a new capability that is so powerful versus the past where we might have sent out a proposal, we would have gotten a no, and we don't really understand why. I think now we can really look at it from a new perspective. And so sales is one of the areas that I think we have the most power to take this and make some real change within our organization quickly. So, what I really want people to walk away with today is that we have to focus on creating really accurate, unbiased psychological profiles of the audience that we want to influence. We call them buyer twins. We're moving away from persona. A persona is flat. A buyer twin is a true psychological profile of the people we want to influence. And then we want to measure buyer alignment. We want to know, do we actually, for this page, this sales asset, this ad, how do we align to those psychological profiles? And then where are the gaps? What are the things that we actually have to improve to increase alignment? And then going through the process of optimizing that. We make changes, we measure again, we make some more changes, we measure again, so that all of our ads, our sales assets, whatever we're doing is aligned to the psychological profile of the people that we want to influence. And by going through this process, what we end up doing is we actually are driving and changing influence. We're increasing open rates. We're increasing click throughs. We're getting people to convert. We're getting people to say yes and increasing our win rates. And so you can focus on a lot of different metrics and ideas within your business. But if you can come in and really focus on this process of understanding your audience, measuring it, improving it, that is where you can create true influence and change your top line and bottom line revenue. And so I think if you're interested in this topic, check out my books for sure. The Buyer Centric Operating System and The Omniscient Buyer both get into some of these topics. And then check out my Buyer Twin platform that really takes this concept and brings it to life using AI to create great buyer twins, measure buyer alignment, and then identify gaps. And this is the opportunity to really make change in your business. I really think if you obsess over the buyer, your other metrics will follow. If you're interested in this topic, please reach out to me. You can reach me through Insivia or Buyer Twin. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And I would love to talk to you about buyer psychology and how you can influence your audience to move to prospect to customer.